Hello, innovators, entrepreneurs, and risk takers. Welcome to another episode of Web3 with Sam Kamani podcast. And today, on this podcast episode, I am interviewing Bruno from Cartesi. And he has been in this space for a very long time at Cartesi for over 5 years as head of growth. And he is going to be sharing everything to do with growth and business development and growing Cartesi and what problems they are solving, as well as his views on where this industry is going. As always, nothing that we talk about in this episode should be taken as investment or financial advice. And as always, please share this on your social media or leave a review on whichever platform you're listening this on. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. So Bruno, welcome to the show. As always, it's a pleasure to talk with you and learn more about what's happening in Web3, what's happening at Cartesi. But for all those people who don't know about your journey, my first question is, how did you get involved in all things Web3 and blockchain and crypto?
Hey, Sam, good to talk with you again, and thanks for having me, bro. Appreciate. So my journey in Web3 was an interesting one. I think start as an early professional in the industry, which is really a recent industry in terms of time frame, not more than 10 years for Ethereum, for example, 10, 11 years.
10 years on 30th of July this year.
We're celebrating the
25.
anniversary.
Ten-
So basically, I'm a telecommunication engineer. I was working mainly as a strategic consultant for a huge corporation in the US called Qualcomm. Qualcomm used to send me to countries to work with different executive teams on the mobile operators to help them define a strategy for the network. So it was a mix of a technical, but also soft skills of creating rapport and relationship with the management teams of operators. I did that in several different countries. I ended up living in 12 countries doing that. Very good experience, exposed to different culture. And I think it was a preparation for the global Web3 culture. And in 2016, I started reading about Ethereum, and I simply fell in love with the primitives and premises of the technology. I suddenly realized that this technology was life-changing. It's not evolutionary, but revolutionary technology that will completely change how we do things. And we are luckily seeing that unfolding in this direction, and I'm super positive with the future, right? Then I start as everyone else. I start as a DJ mode, investing, making money, losing money, ICO money from 2017. But I was already with the sensation that I would like to get involved in this industry somehow, right? 2018, I got an opportunity to shift careers. I left telecom industry, joined full-time a Web3 project, which is an OG project called Bitfury. Bitfury is one of the OG Bitcoin miners. So
Yeah.
I joined them as the pre-sale director for Bitcoin division and as well blockchain division. They used to have a private blockchain infrastructure by 2017, 18. That was a thing, like Corda, R3, and Bitfury used to have as well Exono, a blockchain based on BFT consensus. That was the pre-sales of that, learning a lot through the bear market of 2018, 19, trying to sell Bitcoin mining solutions, trying to sell blockchain solutions. 2020, co-founder of Cartesi, Eric, reached me out, say, you know what, Bruno, I know you for a lifetime. We are colleagues from school and university. We even worked together in our first startup by the early 2000s. Yeah, we are that old, sorry. And so he said to me, Bruno, you are the few persons that I know that knows the industry, knows the technology, is a technical guy, but also has soft skills. I don't know anyone else in my network that could fulfill this position on BG and ecosystem for us. Would like to join us? And when he mentioned the type of people that were involved in the project, I immediately accept. He said, no, we are super low budget. We don't have enough money to pay you enough. I say, I don't care. Like, we're going to build this story together. It's all about people in the end. And indeed, Cartesi has a great set of individual technical guys, right? Amazing, high skilled and super capable people. Right? And that's why I joined. And since then, it has been almost 5 years. Celebrate my 5-year anniversary in September as well. And building the vision and the story of Cartesi.
Fantastic. My next question is around Cartesi. How would you define what problems are you guys solving and why start Cartesi?
Great. I think the story of Cartesi is a project that is ahead. It was ahead of time. And luckily now it's just right on the spot, right? The vision of the co-founders of Cartesi to have an idea back to 2008, and those guys, they would like to build a fully verifiable AI marketplace because they knew that trust was a problem, how to trust that the model is doing what they're doing. So they were working in this problem. And they realized that the blockchain infrastructure was super under-equipped to handle such a challenge, right? And they start building its own VM. It's a RISC-V-based VM, which is now in hype, right? The architecture, and put in an entire Linux OS. So Cartesi has a fully verifiable virtual machine that puts an entire Linux OS. Everything that you do in that virtual machine is fully verifiable, deterministic, and that it was required to have the expressiveness enough to build what they were thinking of building the AI. But suddenly they realized, you know what? This is much bigger than AI only. We built here a general purpose like execution layer that can be used for any use case, fully deterministic and fully verifiable. And why not deploy that as an infrastructure? And then we realized that what we are building was a perfect fit to be a rollups. So Cartesi, it's a rollups infrastructure that sits on top of Ethereum and inherit Ethereum security guarantees.
Yeah.
And our virtual machine is a full-blown Linux-based virtual machine that opens the design space to developers build whatever they want on Ethereum infrastructure. So we are expanding the design space of Ethereum, right? While inherent the full security guarantees of Ethereum. And for the ones that are a little bit more technical, it's very important to stress that Cartesi is one of the very few infrastructures right now that are full compliance with what L2Bit called stage 2, right? So stage 2 rollups has a lot of technical requirements that protect the developers and the end users against threats, against flaws on multi-sigs and such kind of things. Cartesi is a full-blown stage 2 infrastructure, and we are right now polishing even further the dev experience to make it easier for developers to use that. We have first version of our dispute mechanism because we are optimistic rollups, and it's called PRT, right? Soon we're going to upgrade that to Dave, which is classified by L2Bit as the best in class in the whole industry. We are open source and would love more projects to come. And we are super open to have them also using that. Our objective here is to grow together in the industry. We are an open source project, so any project that would like to leverage our dispute mechanisms, they're absolutely free to do. Our technical team will gladly support them in this journey.
Can you give me some examples of use cases that it could be used? And then also the next part of that question is who is currently using Cartesi?
So as I said, the infrastructure is being polished and built, right? We are improving the dev experience on that, meaning that we believe, and especially from the ecosystem point of view, grow. Using our infrastructure shouldn't be a hassle. If using infrastructure is a hassle, it's a roadblock for developers. They should be focused on building the use case, on building their own business, right? We are here to facilitate them by offering them a very rich environment where they can use any programming language, use any tool, any library available, almost a Web2 experience, but developing Web3 applications. That's what we care about. Right? In that sense, we believe Cartesi is very prone to more sophisticated and advanced use cases that cannot be developed in a general purpose L2 because of the computation capacity limitations and because of the expressiveness of the VM. So we are not here to reinvent the wheel. We are here to expand what is possible to be done in Ethereum. We are here to compose, to compound, rather not to replace. We believe on that together, I think, Ethereum. And I would say that in use case, we see a lot of advanced DeFi use cases with more sophisticated mechanisms, automatic DCAs, and more sophisticated, really decentralized order book exchanges, risk calculations for lending, but fully verifiable, decentralized ones, right? In fully verifiable AI, of course, we cannot run a full-blown ChatGPT yet, but we can easily run machine learned models that are fit for a specific use case. We have carbon credit industry examples in our portal called rollupslabs.io. You can access all the use case and all the POCs and MVP that builders are creating using the protocol stack. And we see more in this direction. Gaming as well. We have a very interesting game called RISC, which is a full-blown, fully decentralized, verifiable game platform. And you can create your own cartridge almost without dev experience, using AI to help coding, of course, some vibe coding style. It's
Yeah.
capable to deploy their own games. And this is already fully available to play. It's rives.io. You can there and you can play
Yeah.
or use a cartridge available or create your own. There is a very nice economy around that. Super interesting.
Yeah.
Would be very difficult to create that in other L2 infrastructure though, in that fashion, fully verifiable. So we see more in this direction. So who is our primary target audience, right? First of all, Web3 developers that wants to do more in Web3, but we are also
Absolutely.
aiming not only to keep disputing the same slice of pie, right? Because most of the projects, infrastructures, they have the more or less same addressable market. We want to expand that. We
Yeah.
want to bring the whole developer pie to Web3 potentially, right? It's not that everyone will be developing Web3. Only use case that makes sense to leverage the blockchain properties should use blockchain, but having the capability to address the whole space is very powerful. And since Cartesi has this full-blown Linux-based virtual machine, you can address any programming language. You can have a closed Web2 dev experience with but
Yeah.
developing a Web3 application. So we opened the total addressable market for Web3 to 20 plus million developers. That is what we aim. And of course, we will be super happy to see more of those coming.
Yes.
Cartesi for sure is a shortcut on their journey to learn how to develop in Web3. Still have some
Yes.
tweaks they need to learn, some new primitives, but it's definitely a shortcut. And of course, everything leverage the security guarantees of Ethereum and all the ecosystem around.
Yeah, absolutely. I just look at the number of developers in Web 2 and the number of developers in Web 3. There is a huge gap, like something like
Exactly.
30 million to
Exactly.
80,000, something like that. And Web 2 developers get paid on average. Of course, there are exceptions in AI and stuff, but on average, Web 2 developers get paid a lot less than Web 3 devs. Why aren't Web 2 devs moving to Web 3? As well as it's great that you have the platform and the infrastructure, you still have to reach them somehow. What's your strategy and how are you planning to get to these Web2 developers?
Great question, Sam. Of course, the difference in payments in Web 2 and Web 3 is literally one-on-one economics, right? It's supply and demand. So of
Yes.
course, you have only this short amount of supply of developers, and with the huge demand of coding of projects, there will be an imbalance on the supply demand, and then the price goes up. Later on, with the more mature market, we believe that onboarding millions of developers, the price will stabilize,
Yeah,
and it'll be a
absolutely. Over
healthy, a
time.
much more healthy industry, right?
Yeah.
Right now, the same is happening in Web 2. The AI developers is skyrocketing, right? Because
Yes.
you have very short supply of good ones.
Even in
Same
AI
is
developers, there's a two tiers. So there is the one which is highly experienced, PhD level, and
yeah, yeah,
LLM design, all those type of people, they are getting paid an astronomical sum. And then there are no jobs for entry level people. So that's a
exactly.
massive gap.
It's insane, but we'll correct in the future, right? It will be corrected. And luckily there
Yes.
was that we're in the right spot, in the right place, make the right bets
Yeah,
to become an expert in the field that nobody cares before. They are collecting the rewards for the choices.
absolutely.
And us and Cartel, the strategy that I want to implement is we need to be focused not only on the upper stream of the funnel, the top funnel, right? It's not only about getting awareness of this VM or what is possible to be done and bringing people to test it. But my interest is to convert the whole pipe, meaning the top, mid, bottom funnel. Because for me, the most important KPI of an infrastructure is how many serious projects are coming and building and deploying using our infrastructure. If you ask me what is the most important KPI that I would like to have for Cartesi, how many projects built on top of Cartesi receive external fundings? Because this is the ultimate validation that this project has a real utility and external people are validating that, putting money in the project. And preferably having more than one round, going through seed round, and then is the ultimate validation, right? And for that is not doing hackathons and bringing random developers that are basically money grabber students that wants to grab some money to continue doing whatever they're doing. It's how to attract more serious teams that wants to leverage your protocol for their needs, right? And really take care of them, really work closer to them, not only providing them all the structure they need in terms of marketing, legal, BD support, but also the technical team work closer to them to understand the developers' needs, even to adjust later on our own our own roadmap of enhancements on the protocol stack, right? So of course we are slowly designing that through Cartesi history. Since we are building that for a while, we already test few formulas. We had few success and a lot of learnings. And with this whole, let's say, baggage of experience, we are very confident that once the polishment of the protocol stack is there with the current stage 2 architecture, we can implement incentives and get a go-to-market strategy that is fully aware of the top, mid, and low funnel and be focused more in quality over quantity. But of course, Cartesi is an open source project. We are open to anyone to come and use it, and we will be always trying to support us in our best capacity. But that more or less will be our main strategy, bringing good quality builders that wants to do something meaningful.
That's really good. Talking about open source, I always enjoy learning about various different open source models and how different open source projects tend to monetize. What's Cartesi's plan on monetization, or how do you intend to make it viable for a very long term?
I think any open source project has an inherent risk of someone getting the project and doing something else, right? What we believe is we believe in the collaborative open source approach. So if anyone wants to fork our code and do something with them, well, of course, we'll be super open for that. Is the nature of the open source. We are here to, as I said in the beginning, we are super open to infrastructure rollups that would like to speed up the implementation in the direction of stage 2. They can reach
Yeah,
out and talk with us because that is what we want really is we want to make the industry safer, right? We are tired of having people getting their accounts leaked or attacks on protocols and money drainage to people that is suffering a lot, maybe lifetime savings, we never know, right? We don't want that. We want to leave the place better than we found. And any
absolutely.
project that is listening to that, if you want to reach out and use our PRT and later on Dave, we are super open to collaborate. And of course, we have plans for value accrue mechanisms. We recently published in our Medium post where we explain 3 revenue streams that we believe for our protocol stack. It all involves a validation marketplace. So that anyone sees that our protocol is permissionless. So anyone can join and validate an application, right? It's why that we are one of the reasons we are stage 2. And so the validated marketplace, so the node validators, the node verifiers, they will collect fees. They'll be using Cartesi token, right? But also we are starting to create what we call attention economy of attention, where we also planning to create revenue mechanisms for applications that are generating more monthly actively users, more TVL, etc. Play the game with attention economy, and that also generates some rewards on top. Right? So
Yeah,
then we have 2, 3 revenue streams, ideas to implementing. Some of them using, of course, maybe our validator, which is our staking mechanisms. They will be somehow connected with this economy. And that's what we are planning to do, of course, later after we polish the main version of the protocol stack. We want to leave that ready for developers
yeah,
while we are working in the direction of polishing the economies around.
yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Say when you are pitching Cartesi to developers or partners, what's like the most common objection or friction that you face?
I think for a long time, the fact that we're an alt VM, it was complicated, right? So we have 2 very unique design choices that in the long term is paying a lot back to us. The first one is our VM. We understood that Solidity is great, but it's limited. So we want to expand that. We want to offer a development environment that is richer. Can the developers have much more tooling available for them to develop their own code? And that's why we chose RISC-V
Yes.
architecture, technical reasons, and also an open source hardware framework, right? And Linux, also open source and the most widely used OS in the world, right? Maybe some people don't know that. Linux is by far the most widely used OS in the world. And our Linux is the 64 bits Ubuntu commercial distribution, right? It's regular programming environment. This design choice, we also chose a rollup that is not a general purpose rollups with a network on top of Ethereum, but it's application specifically rollup, meaning that every application will have its own rollup. It's almost like an app chain on top of Ethereum, right?
Yeah.
And why we did that? Because only with that architecture, we can scale computation enough to address new use cases. So Cartesi unlocks computation capacity and programmability. Right? Our computation is 1,000 times more powerful than what you can run on the Ethereum network, for example. So you can do more expressive logics. And since you have more computation, it makes sense to have a more sophisticated virtual machine that allows you to create more sophisticated coding, right? And of course, as any design, you have compromises. We wrote a thesis back 2022 why we did those choices. Cartesi thesis on Medium, widely available, and it's very accessible for general audience. It's not a super technical one. It was very nice to learn that in that time because there's timestamp on our choices and why we did that. But back then, when we were starting up, we had an alt VM, we are Linux-based VM. People say, oh, what? What? We were ahead of time. And it was difficult to explain the propositions for people on why that matters. But luckily, the industry evolved in our direction. So you have Ethereum as with the rollup centric roadmap,
Yeah.
Ethereum coming and saying, rollups, go there and expand what is possible to be done in Ethereum.
Yeah.
And of course, that also generate their own challenges for Ethereum roadmap, the fragmentation, which will be solved. I'm totally sure about that. And once this fragmentation problem is solved, the application specifically rollups infrastructure would be an amazing choice for powerful applications because the fragmentation will be not anymore there, and we will leverage that. That's why, for example, we partnered up with Espresso, right, as a layer of coordination, a layer of liquidity coordination, and makes totally sense to deploy with them as well. But the time in the early days, that was a very big friction. Another friction is how easy it is to use your protocol, right? The Solidity VM environment has hundreds of thousands of hours of developing, tooling, and DevX for that VM.
Yeah.
So, of course, we didn't have that. So we need to listen a lot to the early users and polish a lot our developer experience. Now we have Cartesi Explorer. Now we have a lot of the onboarding to launch your own application. It's a CLI command. It's much easier than it used to do before. So before, this friction was a very big problem to onboard early users. We had a lot of early experimental people, but regular developers with that environment, it was aggressive for them. We achieve a moment that we are very comfortable with our dev experience. And now we are expanding this dev experience to this new stage 2 infrastructure. That's the work in progress right now.
I want to ask you a couple of questions around business development. My first question around business development is how is the different in Web3 compared to Web2?
That's an extraordinary question. I think it's mainly the stage of maturity of the whole industry. It's not common to have in the traditional industry a whole new economic segment being born.
Yes.
And with that, the whole betting attract users on disregards of revenue, but create adoption first, right? We
Yes.
saw that back to early 2000s with Facebook. How many years Facebook was running absolutely unprofitable?
Yeah.
We don't remember about that. It was massive.
Same with OpenAI. 7 years, nearly.
Same,
Yes.
same
No
with
revenue.
OpenAI. Yeah.
Yes.
So the Web3 industry is still in this stage, slowly is moving away from that. We see
Yes.
more and more people say that it's not about infrastructure because we are still mainly on the phase of selling the technology, but it's not selling the products that are created on top of that. For example, we are not discussing here which protocol stack Zoom is developed on top. We are not advertising what is behind
Exactly.
Zoom, right? We are using Zoom because of the value proposition of Zoom is because Zoom is solving people's real life problems, and that's
Yes.
why they have an addressable market, right?
Yes.
So we will soon see that, and more we are seeing that applications that are solving
Mhm.
customers' problems, they are getting adoption, right? And Cartesi bet is to get more of such applications, you need a more rich programming environment that create more robust logics, more complex coding, and which Tesi protocol stack is the natural good fit, right?
Yeah.
But coming back to your question, is we are in this moment right now. So that is the fundamental difference from the traditional to Web3. When you join a company in a traditional life as a
Yes.
BD, you have a product established, you have a company established, you have a segment that is established. You just learn about your product, learn about the competitive advantages of your product. And I hope it
Yes.
has, right? Otherwise, it's difficult to sell. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you need to be cheaper. That's it. You need to have some competitive edge, right? And then together with marketing, you go through your network, you create a pipe,
Yes.
you do your CRM management, you get the funnel, you convert the lead, you work on the lead, you close the deal goes to the post sale unit, and that's it. The guy's a customer. Great. Right.
Yes.
Right now in Web3, first of all, we need to expand this addressable market, right? As you said, you have 80,000 developers average programming in Web3.
Yes.
Cartesi is a B2D business, right? Our main customers are developers, right?
Yes.
So we need to equip developers with the best in place tooling to allow them create the amazing applications that will solve problems from real people. Of course, my side, I need to work very close to product. I need to very close to marketing to understand and adjust our sales pitch or our strategy to the current stage of our protocol stack and coordinate that with marketing. That type of work is not common in super common in the Web2 industry because the products are very well established, right? So only startups have this mentality. So only Web2 disruptive industry startups, they're closer to what we do in Web3, right? So if you get 10, 12 years ago, fintech was very close to that, very fast pace, early nascent products, trying to solve something, trying to get the early customers, understand with the early customers what they need, adjust your own roadmap based on the early customers. Only new segments, we have this dynamism that Web3 does. And that's the fundamental difference, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. If you're starting to do to lead BD for Cartesi or a project like Cartesi now, what would you do differently compared to 4, 5 years ago or 4 years ago?
Think differently, I would try to bring the core developer team much closer to the people that are building on us. Nowadays, it's
Yes.
more reality. They are much more aware of that. But in the early days, that was not that much a reality. Maybe because of the timing of the protocol was really in the stage that was difficult to be used. And we try, even though, to bring early people on board to understand, even to guide our team on what really matters in terms of end customers, in our case, developers experience. And that actually gave some results. A lot of what we did after that, as a consequence of bringing those very early integrators to use our protocol stack. But as also, I think this timing on when to put energy to bring up developers or customers should be very well timing with their own product development. You need to be very mindful which profile of customer you bring based on the readiness stage of your technology. Because if you bring the wrong profile of customer for the wrong moment of your
Yes.
stage, you just generate frustration and no adoption.
Exactly.
So this is a very tricky timing. Try it, and it's a possibility here. You cannot run away from that, but you need to really adjust fast based on short-term feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Just talking about future and whole industry, I feel like our industry has few good product market fits, or whether you call it blockchain, crypto, Web3, all these. So one of them is I would consider as like stable coins. Another one I would consider as Bitcoin as store of value, or institutional adoption of Bitcoin in ETFs or things like that. Some of them are solving, and then there is a lot of gambling related products like Polymarket or whatever. There's lots and lots of gambling, and a bunch all meme coins in that as well. A lot of gambling related products. But apart from this, what do you think would be the next killer app or thing that will get mass adoption?
That's extraordinary question, Sam. I would say that is a common behavior and pattern on
Yes.
totally new industries, right? With the new paradigm. When you have a huge paradigm shift as blockchain create, you pass through an interesting cycle development, right? I can do some comparisons to illustrate, but in the beginning, it's very common in this new paradigm that we are creating on blockchain. It's common to people try to recreate their own business models, their own paradigms on top of these new ones and trying just to do better.
Yes.
But the second phase is more industries where you have very new products that really leverage the very unique primitives of these new technologies and build their own, this whole business model based on these primitives. Is where the real disruption happens, right? For example, it makes sense to have a company like Google before internet. I don't think so.
No.
Right? So internet came and people were trying to recreate the yellow pages on the internet, static pages and etc.
Yes.
So they're trying to, in their mind, it's trying to fit the old world in the
Old
new
world,
right?
yes.
Only when people start being the properties of this internet. What is the new thing they get? They connect people. So if we find a way to index those research and this kind of mind shift, and it was only possible with the new primitive that internet brought. And that's why you start having those new. And the same thing happened with the mobile. What massified the adoption of internet was not internet itself. Internet was lagging something that the smartphone brought. The smartphones, they brought all together in the same device, your location, camera, easy interface, everything, and internet connectivity, everything together in a very specific for the developers create the new applications. Oh, it's a new canvas that was open. That's why Instagram was not created as a desktop application. It's a native mobile phone application, right?
Yeah.
Because they leverage the new properties. And then you have the blockchain technology. And that is what brought me full circle, right? With your first question. What really brought me here in this industry is the fundamental properties of blockchain, which is the best coordination tool ever created by humanity, right? You are outsourcing the trust, and this is absolutely massive. We haven't fully leveraged that yet. You have a network. We have a network that can enforce trust and be a neutral, reliable party. And you can create any type of application that requires trust using that. So, for example, now that a vertical that is getting much more of my attention into everyone else, aside of AI, is RWAs. Because RWAs, I say, but what RWAs so important? It's not only ways, it's a combination of factors. I recently wrote an article in a very big, it's like a Wall Street journal for Brazil called Exame. I will send you the link later. And a super interesting article about RWAs and stablecoins. So if you have a stablecoin, you can imagine a stablecoin as the blood of the system, right? It allows the liquidity to flow. And you have now the RWAs, which are digital representations of physical things in life. When you have these two ones and associated with that, when the revenue accrue of those physical entities can be accrued directly on, that will be the game changing. What I mean with that, I can give you a clear example. I have a property. I put this property as RWA on the blockchain. Great, etc. But if I'm receiving rental and I can use that property, right, to get a loan, it's absolutely doable nowadays.
Yeah.
But then is still missing something because I'm renting this property on the real life. but the
Mhm.
money that is renting is paid on my bank account, which is off chain. So if I want to later on claim that or get or capture this revenue stream for any on-chain claim, is a hustle, right? It's a
Yes.
hustle. But imagine that now my rental payment is doing on-chain and doing directly to a smart contract, a scroll account that is controlling that and using that to repay my loan. And that
Yes.
is absolutely forcible by the bylaws created in this smart contract and this scroll account.
Yeah.
So you isolate the third party risk, the counterparty risk, and you use the network to enforce what was agreed, right? And
Yeah.
this is that's why for me RWA will be so powerful. We are scratching the surface what was
We
possible
are.
to be done.
Yes.
Super early stages, super early stages. We haven't seen nothing yet, but there are fundamental things that needs to be unlocked. Two of them are actually ongoing: is the stable coins and the physical representations, which is
Yes.
RWA, where the value accrue mechanism of those physical, let's say, assets starting to be accrued directly on chain. That is a
Yes.
game changer. It's a game
Yes.
changer.
It is absolutely. I feel like it's like technical innovation, as you were saying. I see it as a ladder that to get to Instagram, we needed the cameras. We needed the cameras on the
Right.
phone. For that, we needed good 4G internet to transmit that. So we needed lots of those things. So we had to, and I feel like the real estate, especially because real estate is such a highly regulated and such an emotional issue for a lot of people around the world because that's the home that they live in and all that, that it would be much higher down on this ladder. The first step for RWAs is the financial assets because they're already in a digital form. You don't have the physical representation and people are not as sensitive, and that's why you see hundreds of billions of US treasuries have now converted to innovate to stable coins, and that's the first RWA iteration. And then we will have the other financial assets that will move on chain because of RWAs. And then we will, once all those are exhausted, then we will move to the next. It feels because there's so many, there's local city councils and city governments and state governments, and like every country has different levels of, and there'll be so many layers of regulation for real estate. And it becomes like a very emotional issue in every country around the world. Any country that even opens up to expats or
Absolutely.
immigrants and property
Absolutely.
gets expensive, then it becomes a political issue. And so that's why I feel like it's much higher down the ladder of innovation that it will have to get to.
Absolutely. And to your point, which is great comparison, the ladder that you mentioned, the
Yes.
whole blockchain infrastructure protocols, they, in the last 5 years, they massively evolved, right?
Yes.
So coming back also full circle to the comment on the beginning of Cartesi with the vision of addressing
Yes.
AI, we create this virtual machine that can do much more than was possible to be done in blockchain. So this whole industry evolved. The computational capacity that is possible to run on top of Ethereum ecosystem is massively bigger right now with the
Yes.
rollup centric roadmap, right?
Yeah.
You have data availabilities addressing as well the data storage constraint. You have latency and also being handled. So lower latency infrastructure right now is doable on top of Ethereum infrastructure through very different choices of infrastructure, right? You can get an L2 with a super low latency. You can get a coordination protocol like Espresso, for example, with low latency and data availability and
Yeah.
coordination and liquidity and messaging. And you can have a veil with data availability. So you have so many different choices, right? And together with that, you have ZK proves that is not only to prove on the network side, but also solve a big problem of privacy, of data
Exactly.
protection, and all of that coming in pieces like a Lego. You
Yeah.
suddenly unlock.
Yeah.
People don't realize that in one moment is a drop that will unlock everything. All these pieces that has been carefully
Yes.
placed along the time, they all make sense for the entrepreneur. Will look to that and say, now I have everything that I want to create the idea that I'm waiting so many years, but I
Yes.
couldn't do it because the technology was not there. It's the
Yes.
same with the smartphones. Suddenly the Instagram guy say, oh my God, I have everything on the device that I need to do my idea. Finally, I
Yes.
can do it.
Yeah.
Finally, I can do it. because it was very difficult for people carrying laptop and taking pictures of their daily life before, right?
Yes.
So that is where we are, and that's why I'm super excited. It's the best moment to be in this industry ever. It has been a journey to see that evolving with all the ups and
Absolutely.
downs, all the cycles, all the FOMO. I think everything is coming to a place. The technology has reached, I think, escape velocity.
Yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
possible to stop that anymore. Nation states are embracing that. It's inevitable.
Yes.
TradFi is embracing that before it's too late. So they are fully on board. So now we're set to sail, I would
Yeah,
say.
absolutely. That brings me to my final question, and that is, what is your ask? Are you guys looking at hiring? Are you guys looking at raising another round or raising some more funding? Anything, or launching new products? Feel free to share.
So what we are searching right now is also people to come and help to test our infrastructure, to come and of course use our technology in their own infrastructure. As I said, the PRT, come in and test what is possible to be done in our own infrastructure as well. As a builder, they can come and explore the limits of the technology. This is basically what we are searching right now. We are searching for also research developers, co-developers to come and take a look. We have right now a challenge to hack our own PRT infrastructure called honeypot, right? This is live internet, so any good soul hacker that wants to try to make our infrastructure and make the whole ecosystem safer, feel free to try to engage and break the honeypot. If they break the honeypot, they can take the money with them as a price, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna later on evaluate the logs and understand the flow and fix and improve and make it better. It's a very novel way for us to do test net on application
Yes.
specifically infrastructure, right? Because there is no network. Every application is on Rollup, is an app chain,
Yes.
basically. So the way for us to test that is to put this running honeypot and say, guys, come and try to break the protocol, right?
Yeah.
So super open to have more people trying to help us to leave the place better than we found. I'm always available, reachable on the socials, on my X account, which is _expat. I'm super open to have discussions, conversations, and fruitful ideas exchange.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited to see what's coming next.
Fantastic. What I'll do is I'll leave all these links in the show notes description or comments wherever on whichever platform this goes out on all those platforms that it will go out on. And thank you so much for your time, Bruno. And we'll need to do this again in 6 to 12 months and see where Cartesi has reached and how our industry has changed and evolved over the next 6 to 12 months.
Pleasure, Sam. Was a fantastic conversation. Thanks a lot for having me once again. Thanks a lot
Thank
for
you.
the whole audience that carefully and patiently listened to us
Yes.
for the whole show. And wish everyone a great day ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening or watching this episode of the Web3 with Sam Kamani podcast. By now, you know the drill. Leave a comment or share this episode with a friend and leave a review. I would love to hear from you. So that's why my DMs are open. Reach out to me, especially if you are a founder building a product in Web3. Then I would love to hear from you. What are your challenges? Is there anything that I can help you or my community can help you with? Thank you once again and wish you best of luck in building your startup or your project.